everyone, it's Hailey. Happy Bookmas Day 30 and happy penultimate day of Bookmas. Today I'm going to be talking about the books that I think I am going to give 5 out of 5 stars when I finally read them. Today's video in yesterday's video because I'm going to be doing it a little bit differently than what I have done in years past. Basically, I'm just going to be focusing on books that I already own, like not new releases. I talked about those yesterday, so if you were more interested in that, I will have that link down below for you guys. But today I wanted to talk about some that I've had for a little bit, just like varying amounts of time, no amount of time in particular, just books that I already own that I want to try and kind of like encourage myself to get to next year, and I think I'm going to really love them when I do. So I don't give books ratings anymore. I just find that it was too like limiting, I guess, so I just prefer to kind of give my thoughts on things. But basically, these are books that I think I'm going to love, which would essentially be a 5 out of 5 star rating for me. I think it's a lot of fun to do this video every year and then react to it the following year. That's what I did this year, and it did really encourage me to get to some books that I had kind of been putting off for a while. So before we get into today's video, don't forget to click that subscribe button and then click the bell icon so you will be notified whenever I post. I'm going to be posting a new video every single day for the month of December, but December is actually almost over. So what I actually meant to say is that I'm going to still be posting multiple times a week, even with December being over, so there will still be a lot of new content. But without further ado, let's get into these books. Okay, so first here I have The Underground Railroad by Colson Whitehead. I love historical fiction, and I've started getting more into adult books this past year, and adult historical fiction has definitely been something that I have been slowly but surely making my way through the hits. And this is one that was super hyped up. I mean, it also won the Pulitzer Prize. Is it Pulitzer or Pulitzer? I don't actually know, but it won that prize, and it was just very, very popular around when it came out. But I'm a little bit late to the hype, but we'll see how I actually end up feeling about it. This is a historical fiction that kind of twists the typical. It is reimagining the Underground Railroad, I've tried to say that so many times, the Underground Railroad as an actual railroad, like an actual physical railroad. And of course, you are following a fugitive from slavery. It seems like it's going to be a very difficult read knowing that, but I think that it could bring up a lot of really important points as well. Next up is Master of Iron by Trisha Levenseller. So this is the sequel to Blade of Secrets, and I try not to include too many sequels on here, but I figured that this one, like, I don't really have another sequel on here. I guess I kind of have one, but essentially I'm not a huge fan of sequels. I don't really read series that much, so I felt like it was okay to include this one. But Blade of Secrets, when I read it, I really loved it, and I have been wanting to get to this one ever since. Trisha Levenseller just writes fantasies that I fall in love with that absolutely fly for me, and Blade of Secrets I think is my favorite by her. So it only seems natural that when I read this one, I will probably give it a very high rating, if I did give ratings, but you get the point. Next up is Outrun the Moon by Stacey Lee. This is the only book of Stacey Lee's that I have not read so far. She writes historical fictions, but wonderfully diverse historical fictions. And this one is set in the early 1900s in San Francisco, and it basically is around the time of the Great San Francisco earthquake. Like, that is actually a plot point, so it's not around the time, it is the time. But you are following a main character who is trying to escape from the poverty of Chinatown. She's trying to go to this school that would afford her more opportunities, but they only accept like rich white girls. So she's trying to break out of that, and then you also have this terrible like situation in her greater world. I think this one is going to be one that I will love because I have quite enjoyed all of the historical fictions I've read by Stacey Lee so far, so I think I'll love this one too. Next is I Kishar Wheeler by Casey McQuiston. Of course, I feel like I'm going to love this one. I fell in love with One Last Stop, was a really big fan of Red, White, and Royal Blue as well, so why would I not love their first YA novel? I Kishar Wheeler is about Shara Wheeler, kind of, but mostly it's about the main character. I don't even actually know her name. Chloe Green. Oh, I didn't even know the end papers. This book is so cute. But Chloe Green has this like academic rival, Shara Wheeler, and Shara Wheeler ends up kissing her and then completely disappearing. So obviously Chloe is trying to figure out like what is happening, where she went, and I think if anyone can tackle a storyline like this, it would be Casey McQuiston. Next up is Some Mistakes Were Made by Kristen Dwyer. I felt like I wanted to include this one because I have seen some really good reviews for it. I believe it's supposed to be a very emotional contemporary, and emotional contemporaries are usually a success for me. I love like a good contemporary that is going to make me feel things and make me cry, and that seems to be the general consensus with this one. This is told in alternating timelines following two characters who were very close, but then there was kind of this fallout that has happened. So it's going to be a like story of first love and losing that, but also friendship. It seems like an all-around read that I would love. Another book that I think I'm really going to love is The Stationery Shop by Marjan Kamali. A lot of you guys think I'll really love this one as well, so that makes me even more hopeful, and it has made me want to pick up this one very soon. But this is a historical fiction, and it is about this dreamy and idealistic teenager who is living in a time of upheaval and uprising, but she ends up finding solace and peace in the stationery shop where she lives. It kind of becomes this safe haven. So I think this is going to be a hard one to read, but also really beautiful. Similarly, All My Rage by Saba Tahir is one that doing Bookmas has made me even more excited for. This is a contemporary, but also kind of a historical book by the author of An Ember in the Ashes, and it is very much a personal story for her. It is following the different generations of a Pakistani family as they like immigrate to the US. So you're seeing a then and now perspective of things. Definitely one that is going to be really emotional, especially based on what you have said, but I think it's going to be one that I will not soon forget once I do finally read it. Having loved The Lost Ticket so much, I felt like I had to include The Last Chance Library by Freya Sampson on here. This one, actually, a lot of people who had read this one and then read The Lost Ticket, they said they were a little bit let down by The Lost Ticket. So that has my expectations super high because I was a really big fan of The Lost Ticket. I thought it was so cute and like the coziest, sweetest read. So I think that this is going to be a really good one to get to like during winter, to be kind of like a warm read to warm my heart. But this is about a library that is trying to be saved. Essentially, like the quirky patrons of the library are trying to save it, and that sounds so cute. The Dictionary of Lost Words by Pip Williams is another one that I have been really excited about since I have been starting to read more adult historical fiction. This one is described as revealing a missing narrative hidden between the lines of a history written by men, and it's actually inspired by actual events. So the author delved into the archives of the Oxford English Dictionary, and this is where the story came from. You're following a young girl who is helping out with this dictionary. I am super intrigued by this one. I don't even know. I want to read this now. Honestly, it sounds so good. The Vanishing Half by Britt Bennett is a book that I have heard nothing but amazing things about. So my expectations are like sky high, and it kind of has a lot to live up to, admittedly, but I'm hoping that it will be able to do it. This is an adult contemporary novel, and it is about two twins, and they kind of ended up having a different upbringing, or not a different upbringing, but they kind of have ended up somewhere different in life. This is a really interesting story about like perception, about racism and discrimination, and I think it seems like such a fascinating topic and like lens through which to explore that. So I think this is one that I'm going to, or at least I'm expecting to love. The Charm Offensive by Alison Cochrane is another book that I have heard nothing but amazing things about. Now, when I'm filming this video, I haven't yet read the Christmas book by this author, but maybe when you're watching it, I will have read it, hopefully. The Charm Offensive, though, is a gay love story, but it is set on like this reality TV show. It's between one of the contestants and a producer, and it just seems absolutely adorable. Wait, maybe it's not actually. Oh, okay. Sorry. this is actually not the contestant. So it is one of the writers of the show, and then he ends up being like on the show. There's another book that's kind of similar that I think I'm getting it mixed up with, but it's the writer and then he ends up being like finding himself on the show, which he was not expecting. And ooh, sounds so cute. So I'm also really thinking that I'm going to love Where We End and Begin by Jane Igharo. I read Ties That Tether this past year, really loved it, so I have very high expectations for this one. This is about star-crossed lovers who get a second chance at love when they are reunited at a wedding in Nigeria. I am such a fan of star-crossed lovers, but I also am the biggest fan of second chance romance, so this sounds right up my alley and like something I definitely am going to fall in love with. The Guncle by Stephen Rowley is a book that I'm really hoping to get to soon because the next book by this author sounds amazing, but this one also sounds amazing. It's like that one movie that I can never remember what it is, but the main character, she ends up having to, like, unexpectedly having her sister's kids because her sister died in an accident. Their parents died in an accident, so now they are orphaned, and she is not really prepared for that, but she ends up having to parent them. And it seems like kind of a similar situation happens here, but it is with their gay uncle who like is an old actor, like he's not acting anymore, but it sounds like it's going to be really cute and really fun and just heartwarming and fuzzy. A Scatter of Light by Melinda Lowe is another book that I think I will love when I finally read it. This is kind of a sequel to The Last Night at Telegraph Club. It's a companion to it actually, but it is set in present day, I believe, and we are once again in the Bay Area, so you do get to see like what has happened to the characters from the previous book, but this is also following all new characters. It says that it is a masterful queer coming of age story set against the backdrop of the first major Supreme Court decision legalizing gay marriage. So that seems like a really interesting like premise for it, and one I'm super looking forward to. The other kind of sequel that I have on my TBR is Tales from the Cafe by Toshikazu Kawaguchi. This is the next book for the Tales from the Cafe series, obviously. Before the Coffee Gets Cold was the first book, and this one I'm not sure if it's like new stories. I would assume it's new stories. I don't remember who we followed in the other one, but here we have best friend, mother and son, lovers, and married couple. And if you are unfamiliar with this, it is like these sweet, really heartwarming stories that will absolutely tug on your heartstrings, but it's this cafe in Tokyo where you can time travel, and it's just a really super fast read, but also really great. And the final book that I want to talk about today is Foul Lady Fortune by Chloe Gong. I'm hoping to get to Chloe Gong's sequel to These Violent Delights this year as well, and I think I will love that one, but Foul Lady Fortune is following Rosalind, and it is an As You Like It retelling set in the 1930s in Shanghai, and it seems like something I would love as well. Okay, so those are all of my 5 out of 5 star predictions for this next year. We shall see when I get to these how I actually feel about them. In past years, I feel like I've been pretty good at predicting, but also I feel like most of the books that I read from last year's I just kind of felt like okay about. Hopefully it's not the same case this year. But thank you guys so much for watching today's video. I hope you enjoyed. Tomorrow is the final day of Bookmas, which is crazy, but for Bookmas Day 31, I'm going to be talking about my 2023 TBR, so the books that I really want to read in 2023, as well as my resolutions, which is going to be a lot of fun. So I will see you in that video then. Bye!